Hello my friends, and welcome back to another episode of MTD CNC North America. I am here in Rochester Hills at Fanuc America in this incredible customer experience center, and I'm with my buddy Joe, and we're going to talk a bit more about education in general. So Joe, thank you so much for being a part of MTD CNC.
Oh, thanks for coming out and visiting us, Tony.
Yeah, absolutely a pleasure. So we're going to jump from area to area here and explain to these guys exactly what we do here in Michigan and how you guys are able to support so many people around the country. But we're going to start here with this interface. So, man, I'm ready to learn.
Okay, all right, well, so I'm the account manager responsible for CNC Certified Education. So we have a whole program dedicated to education and workforce development where we do a train the trainer program where we train and certify an instructor on Fanuc robots and CNC. And these are just some of the products that we have that are available for high schools, community colleges, universities to help train the next generation of workforce. As you know, there's a huge skills gap at the moment right now, and one of the things we hear commonly from our customers is we can't find anyone with people with the right skills to do the job. So we've come up with a lot of tools and a lot of solutions to help certify and train the workforce that's out there. And so to start, this is our CNC machining simulator. Basically, it is a Fanuc CNC control, and what we've done, it can be either a 2-axis lathe or a 3-axis mill, and we've paired it with a plug-in from ModuleWorks, which actually creates a virtual machine that's based on the real kinematics and parameters of a machine. So it is the most realistic replica in a virtual environment that you can have for a lathe or a 3-axis mill. But we even go beyond that into more 5-axis applications into our complex milling suite of software. Schools can purchase this as either a base model without the fancy simulation and just learn some basic programming and navigation of the menu screens, or they can add into this to the machining simulator with that whole virtual machining practices, which is really great because a lot of times if you have a machine, you're kind of worried that students are going to crash it, but here in this virtual environment it's totally safe. It shows if a collision occurs, shows the tool path. It also has real machining noises. I mean, that's a big part of getting experience is what kind of sounds is this machine going to make. So this is our machining simulator, as well as we also offer a variety of machines that schools can purchase to have in their machine shops so they can actually do the real metal cutting, because that's what we want to train students to do and the actual process. Simulation is good and it's a good environment to learn, but when it comes down to it, we want people learning how to cut metal.
You're absolutely right, and you've inspired so many questions that I want to talk about now, just based on some things I knew and some things I didn't. The first thing, which I did know, is we see this interface everywhere, right? I mean, they're on so many machines all over. I know Methods is a big partner of yours. They have the Fanuc interface on a lot of their machines, which makes it user-friendly going from one style machine to the next style machine to the next style machine. So I think that part's fairly obvious. I know the guys out there have seen this all the time, everywhere. But what's kind of neat to me is that you're supporting the schools with this as well, which thank you for doing that. Yeah. Have you guys ever considered going into the middle schools as well? Because maybe we could even plant that seed even earlier and get into that part of the education.
Yeah, I think in general, just more advocacy for our industry, getting out there and exposing students to this type of technology. There can be a student who maybe has an aptitude for math or geometry, able to understand angles, understand Cartesian coordinates, but we're not really, I think in the education system, we're not really showing students that, oh, those X, Y, and Z planes, this is how they're used in the real world. I mean, we're starting to get there with things like additive manufacturing and 3D printing, but certainly the job demand right now is in manufacturing, in machining, even just basic machine operators all the way up through machining programmers.
Yeah, I'm so happy you brought that up, is because I would definitely be one of those students who sat in geometry class with drool running down my chin going, I'm never going to use this, right?
Guilty as charged.
You as well, right.
Yes.
But looking at this, and then when I first got into the machining world, I go, oh my gosh, I really could have used that geometry about now.
And that's where it makes sense, and that's where it's a practical application, and that clicks for a lot of students. So I think we need to do a better job of that in our education system overall. I mean, don't get me wrong, there are plenty of teachers who are passionate out there who who are saying this is how it's done, this is what we need to expose students to, whether it's machining instructors, mechatronics instructors, PLC instructors. I mean, they are out there and preaching and trying to spread the good word to students, and we're seeing a lot of evolution in like the first robotics and Lego robotics, and trying to promote STEM to younger age students, and just getting the word out there, and that's how we're going to compete in this global economy.
You're absolutely right. And again, something else you talked about previously was that we have a shortage of people, right? There's a massive skills gap. And one of my good friends, James Shortway, when I was on a podcast with him recently, who was also with Methods, I said, what do you love most about this industry? He said, I've never had to worry for my job because there are so many openings and we do need people. So getting into this type of software and learning it, it's necessary, it's needed. We want more of you to come, and we need to educate not just the stereotypical machinist that loves engineering type work, but men, women, children. Let's advocate for all of it, right?
Absolutely. And I think the other thing is I think we're starting to get away from that. Everybody needs to go and get a 4-year degree. I think apprenticeship programs, 2-year degrees, certifications are becoming more and more accepted as this is a good way to get your foot in the door. And in a job shop or a manufacturing environment is a great job to learn while you earn, I think is how the phrase goes. But you can get in as a button pusher that does the initial loading of a part, presses the button, and that's where you start on the ground floor. But the sky's the limit on how far you can go in each of those different certifications and training. So as you present more value to your employer, you then in turn are going to be paid more and have a better opportunity to provide for your family and have that living wage. It's the saying that skilled labor isn't cheap and cheap labor isn't skilled. If you want to have an opportunity, you need to go out there, get some skills, get some credentials. Likewise, manufacturers need to also be supporting that education efforts, getting involved with their community colleges and the universities and even at the high school level, and saying, this is the type of equipment we have in our facility, this is the type of equipment you should be training the students on. Not education grade, low quality machines, training them on the real world controls and software and equipment that is used in manufacturing, so they walk in that door of that factory that first day, they're ready to hit the ground running.
Very, very well expressed. Thank you for that advocacy. And before we move on to the next area of what we're going to talk about, I kind of want to just go back to this thing makes noises like a real machine when you're training on it, because I sure crashed a few machines in my day and I sure could have utilized something like this.
It totally does. If we had a speaker hooked up to this, it would be as it's cutting it, and you'd see virtual chips flying because it's based on the real kinematics, the real functions of the machine. So as students are learning on this in the safe environment and then they go over to the real machine, they're not going to be shocked that there's these noises that are occurring, but again, it's cutting metal. We want them to get as much, involved into the virtual as they can to start, so that it's safe and it's a controlled situation, and then move on and advance to the next level.
Awesome. I love it. So let's move on to this next area here, and let's talk a little bit about what we have going on in this part of the room.
Yeah, so I kind of went on because CNC and RoboDrill are sort of my main area where I'm passionate about, but I did come from a robotics background, and that's really where sort of our initiative on education kicked off back around 2008. We kind of really focused in and saw the needs of our customers to have a skilled workforce, and we developed a strategy for education. So similar to the simulation software there, we have our CERT robotics program, which includes a series of online classes. It's a train the trainer program, really. So we train the instructors at the school, and then we also provide them the tools they need to facilitate that training. So we have our RoboGuide simulation software, which is very similar to this, but we can import CAD files and do all of the virtual programming offline. They can navigate through the Teach Pendant in the virtual environment, and then they can move on into to the next level onto the real robot. So they get some practice there first, and then we also have the eLearn online courses that help to support the instructor as they're learning how to deliver the curriculum, and we have tests that they can go through and monitor, and then students can get NOCTI certified, which is a third-party certification entity that we have a basic robot operator 1, operator 2, and then we go into technician, more of the repair side, more advanced level of technician 1 and technician 2. But combined between between our CNC certification program and our robotics, up here it says 1,200 schools and growing, but we're actually growing like well beyond that. We're right around 1,400 schools right now. So all across the country at community colleges, high schools, universities, there are students getting trained on Fanuc products that are ready to throw a hat on and get into the job market. One of the concerns of industry is that they don't want to embrace automation and add robotics or CNC to their facility because they have that skills gap concern. We don't have the right people to fill these jobs. Well, I tell you, the 1,400 schools out there across the country learning on Fanuc products, there's somebody out there who is going to be able to help that, and at least they have a leg up and are familiar with how to program and recover from errors, do all that fault recovery. We're solving the workforce solutions before they even enter the workforce.
Joe, let me just say that you are conveying an extremely powerful message, and let me thank you for that. And let me thank you for the advocacy that you're doing with our schools across the nation and even into Mexico, it looks like. From MTD CNC, let me just say thank you. You started with being a robo-drill advocate. I love robo-drills as well. And I've actually had the great privilege to walk into facilities where there's 50,000 of them or 15,000 of them in one area, and they're built just in such a way that you can line them up, that they're gonna last forever. So I too am a massive robo-drill advocate. So I just wanted to mention that because I love it, but also let's talk a little bit more about what we're doing here. Now, to my knowledge, and we talk about this a lot, guys, we do, there is a fear still a little bit with robotics, right? There's a fear, either it's gonna take my job or I'm gonna crash it or whatever it might be. We know, you and I, and I'll let you explain it more than I, but we know that it's not taking jobs, it's actually adding jobs, but we're removing the mundane. And training classes like this help us have the confidence to jump into it like we need to do anyway.
Correct. Yep, absolutely. I mean, that's the old saying is the robots do the jobs that are dirty, dangerous, difficult, and dull. I mean, it's the type of jobs that really people shouldn't be doing. We have a mind that, for my sake, I say that God gave us to be creative, to be visionaries, to be craftsmen, to be problem solvers, not to be someone that is sitting there doing a dull, dirty, mundane task that is ergonomically challenging. So use that brain and those talents that you've been given and learn those skills, upskill yourself, add value to yourself. We're also seeing that this is a globally competitive market. So we're seeing automation and robotics being applied all over the world right now, and that is how we're going to compete. So it used to be we were competing with lower labor markets, so countries with higher populations that were paying their employees less. Well, now those markets are improving, and so what they're doing is they're starting to automate to make themselves more efficient. So we have to all be working and using the best technology that we have available to us to make us globally competitive.
Well, you mentioned safety, right? And we want to be safe, and it's taken away jobs that were maybe unsafe. If I'm not mistaken, and correct me if I'm wrong, around the early 80s, you guys kind of started with the paint side of things, right? And people could be in a paint booth and suffocate and poison themselves in their lungs, and robots helped with that. So it is very much about safety and not taking jobs.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's safety, it's improving quality, and it's exploiting technology instead of people.
All right, Joe, well, we've talked a lot about what we're doing on a educational level, starting with the early age school system, right? But this isn't just for the early age kids, although we want them to learn about the industry. This is for people looking to change careers and maybe even military veterans that are coming back looking to get into a career as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. At these community colleges, a lot of them have either it's just a certification program for if you are looking to change careers. It's a great opportunity to go in with a few months of training, get a certification, and then go out and get into the job market. And you can start really at any age. I think sometimes people get scared about a career move, but it may be an opportunity where if you are trying to provide a better life for your family, you can get out there, get that certification, get that training, and get that better living wage with those skills. So a lot of the community colleges have good workforce development programs, as well as even our facility here where we train industry customers can come in. We've got a 22,000 square foot training facility with 95 dedicated robots with application end of arm tooling on them. So students can come and learn basic operator training, advanced programming, vision programming, electrical maintenance and troubleshooting, mechanical disassembly and reassembly. So there's a lot of different avenues, and one of the nice things about a robot system is that it's multidisciplined. So you can have software if you're a gamer or a coder, or somebody who's kind of interested in those things. Software programming might be right up your alley. If you're a person who likes to turn a wrench, mechanical disassembly and reassembly, robot rebuilding services or repair opportunities, or building end of arm tooling is a great opportunity for something that's a hands-on job. If you're electrical minded, going through and be able to troubleshoot a controller that has a blown fuse or something along those lines, it's multidisciplined. Or you can be just a jack of all trades, where you're that super technician that goes in there and is the hero of the factory, and you can learn all those skills through our program.
Yeah, that is absolutely incredible. I agree. I just would like to add, for you guys watching right now, we recently did a podcast on the gun show, and automation engineer is the #1 desired by the industry job right now. So listen, take it from Joe. Joe has been doing this a long time. We want you, and this is an incredible way to join in.
Absolutely.
But let's move on over to this third step of what we want to talk about today, right? And I can do-si-do around with you, and you can slide over
All right,
here.
Yep. So the next part of when you move from the simulation software and you learn and you get to the real robot. So this is an example of one of our education carts. Right now it's faulted because I'm actually in the safety zone. But this is a fenceless cart. We've got a 3D area sensor, so when I'm in close proximity to this robot, it stops. But if I move out of the work zone, it will resume its motion. There we go.
Yeah, here you're clicking.
So it stops again. But this is a great opportunity for students to get a teach pendant in their hand. And what students learn on this pendant is exactly the same as any of the robots that are in an automotive environment, or in a general industry packaging line, or even in some of the other realms that we're going into. It's the same pendant, so they're learning on real world equipment, not a education grade robotic system.
Well, if I'm looking at that one, and I'm looking at this one, and I'm looking at this, and I'm looking at the actual robot, just to convey what you're saying as well, it's very similar, isn't it? Mm-hmm. So we're starting in elementary school, more or less, mentally, and moving into university and professionalism, so that we have the confidence to really program at a high-skilled level to create a process that we want to do to create success, right?
Yeah, and correct. And the other portion about it is that you need the right tools, so the right equipment, the right software, and then we also have the supporting curriculum to make it easy for the instructors who we've already developed. We've took the hard work out of it, and they're just delivering the curriculum that they've been trained on.
Yeah, I am thoroughly intrigued and amazed looking around this facility at what you guys are doing here, and looking at this map, how you're supporting this industry and helping it grow. So I want to just say one more time, thank you for doing that. You mentioned this a minute ago, and I just want to say it again. This is how we compete,
yes.
Right? This is how we compete, is by getting into this automated world. We are talking with a software that's on many machines, so we've familiarized it. It's not one of those things we're afraid of. Now we're moving into automation. We're no longer afraid because we can't really crash it here on the software, right? So before we get into the facility and really mash one up, we're saving money by crashing in the software.
Yep.
So it's really all encompassing, and I think this is an absolutely incredible facility you guys have here.
Oh, I appreciate it, Tony. Yeah, it's a great place. I love working here. I do want to add one thing into
Absolutely.
this. That a lot of times I think I had mentioned the concern about finding skilled labor when applying automation. I think that also goes to students who are interested in this type of field. I think sometimes students might get scared and say, oh, that robot stuff or that CNC, that's too advanced for me. That's too complicated. I remember when I was a training instructor in our training department here, my wife used to say to me, how do you do that every day, do that robot programming? And she would think that I was punching in zeros and one and figuring out forward kinematics and inverse kinematics and all this stuff. So she thought I was really smart. But don't tell her, though, that it's not actually that complicated. Once somebody explains this to you, I mean, there's a lot of buttons on there, but once somebody walks you through these buttons, it's really quite easy. And we've even got a lot easier with our IHMI screens that have built-in tutorials. So if you're scared about automation, whether adding automation to your factory or if you're a student that's interested in a career like this, you can do it. It's not that hard. And apart from that, I also just want to advocate that industry get out there, get involved with your high schools, community colleges, tell them what your needs are. If you have job openings right now for machine operators and machinists and you have those needs, then you need to be talking to your local community colleges about what your needs are and help get the right equipment into those facilities.
Everything you're saying, I love, man. And
Sorry,
you're right.
I'm passionate.
I love it. And it's going to be conveyed to the audience as well. So thank you for doing that. Yeah, it's no longer about binary coding, is it? And we want people to believe, hey, we're geniuses out here, but we can educate everyone and we can do this. We can do this together. I like that you've said that. And I think it's important that we all realize that we can, you know, reduce this skills gap together through education, through this style and this style with Fanuc, who I absolutely love. And thank you so much for being a part of MTD CNC and sharing your passion with our global audience.
I appreciate it, Tony. Thank you.
Absolutely.